So this is how it starts. Welcome to the start of the video. A very good place to start. How's that for an intro?
Yeah, I think that's good. And we know what you're all thinking. How dare we show our smug little faces around here in HD once again after the roaring success of and response to our first HD video about Girl Defined. So we're diving into Brad Wilcox again today.
Oh yes, our favorite, Brad Wilcox, is back with
a brand new rap.
another grand slam.
He is genuinely a rapper. For those of you who don't know, we'll link the video in the description box.
How come the girls come?
How
really
come the
moved
girls
me.
come? And also, what about the whites?
How come we're not talking enough about how come it took
About
how come the whites didn't get as much?
So diving into Brad, let's see what he's got.
Nobody is more in touch with what's going on with the youth these days than brother Braddy Brad.
So true, and we've always said that. What's this about? You've
This
watched this.
It looks like they're on some YouTube channel. I didn't dig very deep. A British person, so you're gonna love that. From the clip that I saw, this person leading the interview with Brad brings up a really nice point and something that we see in our lives and are trying to accentuate more and more, which is that focusing on the commonality that we all share in real life as opposed to the extreme binary aggro vibes that we get on the internet, myself included, where like I find myself talking in ways that I would never speak to another person in real life, and I genuinely like try to be chill and like
we
kind
try,
of stuff.
but
I could throw out a zinger.
we got called out by Bethany Beale and their new 24 hours in a nice way, in a really nice way.
Yeah. So, but it's so
it makes you think though about how easy it is to like just when you're on an internet space. Even with the best of intentions, I just think it naturally happens that we lean towards not being as respectful as we would in real life.
Oh yeah, I remember in getting my communication degree at Brigham Young University, Idaho. So
know who you're talking to. Show some fucking respect.
The spirit of Rick is glowing in my countenance.
A Bachelor of Science.
But we learned that people, I'm making up this statistic, but there is a high percentage, or at least I'm trying to remember, I don't know the exact number, but people tend to read any kind of digital print as like 30% more aggressive and angry than what is normally spoken, because humans rely so much on body language and eye contact to like regulate during exchange of information. And when we don't have that in any way, through text, which is why I've had to learn how to use emojis.
I was going to say, first of all, stone cold, but I'm used to it. I've known you for years, so it's fine. But this is why I think the emoji girlies, such as myself, are really the objectively true way to do things. But emojis just add so much. They are, you've voiced it perfectly, like they are making up for the warmth you can't feel through body language. And yeah.
Or the subtleties of language, like people are like, why isn't there a sarcasm font? And it's like, it's italicized, but also the emojis help us see that. And my worry now is swinging the pendulum too hard in the other direction and being the chuggy millennial boomer,
bring it on,
millennial to boomer pipeline that's just like only this, and it's like, oh, you are so old, you're literally communicating with like Egyptian hieroglyphs like at this point.
And you know what? What's wrong with that?
Nothing. I think
I'm coming out as a boomer in spirit.
Terrence McKenna, one of
my
his...
mom's shit at emojis. The boomers are not.
Not all, I was going to say Terrence McKenna, one of his predictions for culture was that it was going to, and language was that it was going to become more and more visual so that we could really see what each other means more. And in a way, video has allowed us to do that in a way that newsprint never did. And Paul and Morgan Girl Defined collaborations are now helping us view that in a way that text print could never do.
The printed word.
That
we
30% helps so much.
Yeah, it really does. Should we dive into
Let's do
Brad's
it.
remarks?
Yeah, that is way too much intro.
It was what
Cut
it
out
was.
as much as you
it
want.
was in HD though, so I just feel like anything's allowed when it's in crystal crisp audio and visuals. If you're not an ex-Mormon, you don't understand Mormonism. Basically, this guy's just a thought leader in the Mormon church, kind of high up. People know him, people respect him, people look up to him, they listen to him.
He's been over the young men over all the church for a while. And prior to that was a church education guy.
That was released last night, and it was with one of the US presidential candidates, and I was just interested in listening to it, and he was saying a similar thing of when you look at the news and you look on social media, there's this narrative of everyone's divided, and it
Nemo's looking really different in this one.
I'm like literally just hearing a Beatle talk, and I expect to be like, yes, George, very fascinating.
Really?
Where would you guess he was from? Liverpool? Liverpool. He sounds like George Harrison.
I'd say probably like vaguely Yorkshire adjacent.
I would guess he sounds just like George Harrison, and I'm not saying that as a person who's like, oh, all British accents are the exact same.
So you think?
Hello, governor, that's how the Queen talks. I think he's from wherever George Harrison is from.
All right, let's find out where he's from. And who's this guy? I guess we can look him up.
Let's just derail this instantly.
Can someone just tell us? No, I don't trust you guys. We need like a very specialized autistic person to tell us what accent he
George
has.
Harrison is from Liverpool. Yeah, that makes sense because he grew up with Paul and George.
But it's not a certain thing with England. I don't know. We'll keep listening. I'll tell you if my
Maybe
thoughts
it
change.
is York. I really. Maybe George Harrison changed due to all the LSD, and then oh damn it, I lost it. I went Australia.
I hate
No,
when
the
you
easiest
lose it.
mistake in the world.
Yeah. All right. Back to this. What's even happening? I don't know.
there's this narrative of everyone's divided, and it looks as though everyone's divided. And then he said, but when you go out on the street and you speak to people and you experience these things with people, there's actually, there isn't as much division as what's uniting us and what's bringing us together. And
Who's this man? Who's this interviewer?
I don't think that's for us to know. It could be the Holy Ghost for all
Why
we
did
know.
Brad agree to do an interview with him? Is he Mormon?
I'm assuming he's a member of the
Yeah,
church
Brad's
because
not
they're
gonna
just
do-
no,
yeah,
it's
okay.
all internal PR.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
you could have a conversation with basically anyone, and you could come away so enriched by it. And
That's what we've been saying.
I know, like beautiful thought, right? Like so
Oh,
true.
is Brad gonna derail this?
Yeah, and of
Oh,
course,
okay.
you know he
I
will.
see. I was like, I can't think where this is. Yeah.
No, he's just like, yeah, like I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, everything you're saying, if we just like met in, I almost said coffee shop, and I was like, that we would never meet in a coffee shop unless you were, you know, doing some ministry work out there. But, you know, if we just met and we had a conversation, be like, yeah, we could probably get along and find a lot of like human connection and walk away not as enemies. But then instantly it was like, you know what? I see that like that kumbaya shit you got going on, and I
having it.
raise you.
How come the whites? A lot of Mormon leaders are intensely us versus them, but he's kind of up there, you know, in kind of the level of us versus them rhetoric that we've heard from him.
And you kind of have to, I think that's just like people who rise in the ranks. That's how you rise in the rank, is
Yeah.
like doubling down and like super amplifying the message and being like the outsider complex and follow the leader and yada, yada,
Yeah.
yada.
I was touched by that.
Brad's like, here's why you shouldn't be touched by that or anything ever.
Yes, I think the same thing could be said about young people leaving the church. They leave so loudly.
Sorry, this guy's just uttered a beautiful sentiment about how people aren't as divided as he thinks, and Brad's just immediately jumping into villainizing people who leave the church.
His thing with loudness, remember when he was talking about women and he's like, just because they say something loudly doesn't mean that they're right.
So true. We are often so wrong when we are loud.
And so right when we're quiet.
They leave so publicly. I don't know that there's really that many more people leaving the church today than have left the church in any era of.
There's literally, there's data. I mean, we know it is. Every week we see new data that has either come out or been revealed.
But on the counter side, we also see new statements from the leadership saying, nope, all is well as Zion. So
Never seen that
facts
strategy
and
employed
logic,
in any other high control group.
mouthpiece of God. It's just hard to argue there.
Wow, really just going full Delulu. Good to Brad.
a fellow Delulu
He
twin.
thinks he's not one of the girlies, but he is.
Kirtland, Ohio, the overpopulation issues of the 70s, the ERA issues of the 80s, the Mark Hoffman forgeries. I mean, there's always.
That's so funny that he's like, yeah, people have been leaving all the time, and then lists just like a shorthand list of only a slight smattering of some big historical issues with the church. And then it's just like, they've just always been leaving for legitimate reasons. And what's new with that? So can we really say that people are leaving? No, they've always left for clearly some very compelling reasons.
But what's different this time? I've decided it's different.
I mean, there's always been something that has given people an excuse to leave. But what's happening?
Would just like to remind all listening that one working definition of a high control group, colloquially referred to as cults, is that there is never a valid excuse to, there is never, see, even framing it as an excuse already.
There's
is like,
never a
there's never a
legitimate
legitimate reason to leave. You can't leave with your dignity intact. It has to be a fault of character, a fault of knowledge and study, and it's
And
always,
even if you're someone who is looking for every excuse to stay and to keep believing it's true, they will characterize it as you just wanted an excuse to leave, when that is that's objectively not true.
like he said the Mark Hoffman one, it's like, oh yeah, the fact that prophets, seers, and revelators who have been publishing false history about the church were duped by a con artist into buying multiple high-profile, really expensive documents
With
that
tithing
later
money, I would
unraveled
assume.
into like a violent killing spree that both like, you know, just by its like insanity rattled the community, but also exposed them as like having zero insight both into their own history and into like, they're always like, we have the gift of discernment and we could see things. We're playing 5D chess. We could see around the corners and like we're up on the mountaintop seeing it all. And it's like, you got duped by just like a regular con artist. Like,
Yeah.
and it happens time and time again. And him being like, and that's just an excuse to leave. That's
And then
on
us
you.
just not wanting the ERA to fall, like just because of that.
You guys are just gonna be loud about that just because.
I've said it a million times before, but believers have such a false sense of how loud people are when they leave, because to them, anyone speaking out about why they left at all is insane and is religious persecution.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is that I think a lot of people go silently into the night. The number one thing you hear, we've heard this for years, I've heard this from faith transition clients, like when people first leave, almost universally at first, they'll say, I don't want to be one of those people that's like super loud or and against the church, like because everyone's been so conditioned by this kind of thinking, you know, that is like demonizing people basically being open about their reasons for leaving or daring to have any kind of anger about the fact that they were lied to and they were child brides and there were, you know, all these horrible things
Or
that they were never taught.
forced to go on 2-year free door-to-door sales marketing trips.
And the church continued to uphold certain things as true, knowing that they were not true and that like it mattered to people whether it was true. Anyway, so I just don't think it's, even if everyone was really loud as they left, that would be fine. It's a super valid response when leaving a high control group to want to like process it externally, and social media is how we all like share about ourselves these days. And obviously there's like varying degrees of effectiveness to how you do that. But anyway, I just don't think everyone is going as loudly as he thinks.
I wonder if someone were to convert from, say, Catholicism and they made a video about why they left Catholicism to join Mormonism. You're not going to be like, how dare he be so loud about his departure?
Just wanted an excuse to leave Catholicism.
Yeah, literally.
You would never see it as wanting an, but yeah, it's because the built-in thing is that like everyone who leaves is just wants to choose sin. Like that's the foundational assumption.
You are fundamentally flawed, and because you're refusing to accept that premise, it's your fault. Again, sorry.
Which is so bad for families and for relationships because their loved ones leave and they genuinely believe in their souls that there's no reason a person would leave unless they were sinning in some way. Yep. And that fucking sucks for the person who's on the other side who's like, I get that because I used to believe that too, but I haven't sinned. Like, it's not been like that for me. Entrench us further, Brad. Let's go.
Happening now is that they're leaving so publicly on social media that then it seems like everyone is leaving. But what we don't see is the
shrinking number of wards, the selling of chapels that can't be filled.
The fact that they can't get enough temple workers for tons of temple. Like I saw something on Reddit the other day that someone like kind of leaked from a bishop's meeting, and it was like, we need 80 more temple workers and we can't get any. And like they were trying to get ward attendance up from like 34% to 39%. And yeah.
What we don't see is the quiet people.
Stay to Lulu, Brad.
You gotta be a little Lulu in the lemons. Gotta be.
Only those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world will actually do it. Do LSD, Brad, like Steve Jobs, Brad. Go on an all-apple diet, Brad.
Well-behaved Brad seldom make history.
Who aren't posting on social media about their faith and about the fact that they would never leave because they're afraid of what people might say or what people might comment.
We all thought we would never leave.
And we have seen that. You have done multiple social media campaigns encouraging all membership to do precisely that thing.
Well, he's saying the people leaving are so loud, but basically everyone's still in the church. They're just not talking about it. He's talking about.
Yes, they are. Literally, #WhyIStay. Look it up. It was a trending video for a long time.
Like, are there Mormons that don't post about their faith on social media? Sure. But he's kind of just, I guess his point is just that, like, the ex-Mormons are louder than the Mormons, which is not true.
Well, I think what they are is, at this point, they're more informed about the issues that are being discussed, right? Because the LDS Church has tried to keep a clamp on information. Of course, they've been obligated by the internet age to, like, begin a process of transparent, like, opening up a bit. But still trying to clamp hard down on the narrative surrounding all of that. So, like, most of the issues that we would discuss that led us out of the church, the average member is, like, it's not even on their radar. I mean, they're like, I knew all about polygamy. And it's like, no, you didn't. Trust me. Within 10 seconds of conversation, it'll become very apparent that you actually don't.
Yeah.
That any
You would not
awareness
be
you have
looking
is
so
like
smug if
a
you knew.
scratch in the soil surface. It's like, it's grim. And so, yeah, I could see why there are fewer and fewer members who would feel uncomfortable engaging with, like, any kind of apologetic discourse online or opening themselves up to feedback from former members now that so many former members have left. I mean, I grew up hearing about polygamy, but I had no idea, never heard mentioned the name of any of Joseph Smith's wives, didn't know how it all went down. It was also very like,
It's not in any of the
God's
movies,
ways are
which is
higher
so
than
weird.
our ways. It's all mysterious and not in this life, but in the next.
If Joseph Smith had like 36 wives, and I don't imagine it's a true polygamy situation where he's like going around and making time for all the 36 wives. I imagine there were some people that he just wanted to sleep with and then, move
Yeah,
on.
or a power,
But it's like that would take up a lot of his time. Like when you watch the movies about his life, it's if he had that many wives, that would be like the bulk of his time. I swear.
I only have 6 wives, and I'm like,
what? I can't get you in my Google cow.
They don't tell you how much of polyamory is just calendaring.
And about the fact that they would never leave because they're afraid of what people might say or what people might comment.
I would just encourage anyone of any ideology or, affinity group to maybe say maybe instead of never. We never say never. Well, maybe sometimes we say never. Who knows? Saying I will never leave, like, you should be willing to leave if I encountered evidence that what I was hearing was actually not true, of, bad actions by the leader, of a fundamental flaw in the design of the endeavor that ends up harming people, then I would leave that. I could say I haven't experienced that yet, so I will stay true to that.
Mm-hmm. But it's such a core part of the belief system that once the Holy Ghost has testified to you of Mormonism's truthfulness, it doesn't matter. Like, you've got your witness. That's it. And you are conditioned to create zero space for any other possibility. Like,
and that witness can be loosey goosey.
Oh.
It can be not an answer.
It cannot happen, and that can be it, or it can happen.
I prayed and didn't get anything. Well, I think that's because
that's
the Lord's way of telling you that you. Oh.
And you didn't need.
You are. That is so funny.
Because and that's the chorus line,
No, it was true.
It's like the verses are like, I'm on my knees.
Yeah.
Oh, it writes itself.
Because they're afraid of what people might say or what people might comment.
I'm afraid that if I say that I'm going to stay in the church forever, somebody could just drop a bomb in the comment section that could totally unravel my whole worldview. And that's actually pretty terrifying and akin to religious persecution.
And so we see the very loud exit, but we're not seeing the very quiet coming back.
It's also just so fucked up because it's like, it's a much bigger phenomenon that ex-Mormons are terrified to speak out about it because of the way they're going to get judged and the comments that might be left.
Yeah, the community
on their
fallout.
stuff.
The number one question we get is like, should I tell my parents? Like, how do you tell your parents? How do
Yeah.
you interact with family
Yeah.
who's like going to be devastated and heartbroken
People
and
are
angry? And-
scared to speak up. People will book like month sessions with me to like gear up to do that thing because it's so scary.
The church is designed to absorb as much of your social structure as possible. And so most people in the church, like their primary friendships are all in the church, and walking away from that hits at one of our like core fears as human beings of being ousted from our groups.
But we're not seeing the very quiet coming back.
It's because it's not really happening, Brad.
Oh, but he has an anecdote. And anecdotes
Ah.
always supersede data.
That's what I see when I'm out talking to them. I see the young people who are coming back. I was at an institute.
Ooh, I love a good convenient sample.
I mean, yeah, his job is Mormonism, so he's only hanging out in spaces with people who are in Mormonism. He's not like, in Salt Lake City coffee shops talking to it.
When I'm out and about with those who have left the church,
In West Salt Lake, and the young man who was taking me to the different classrooms where I was making an announcement to try to recruit FSY counselors, he was walking me from room to room, helping me get around the building. And I said, tell me about your experience in the church. He said, well, I left the church. He said, I left the church a little while ago. And I said, why? He says, oh, because it seemed popular on TikTok. It seemed popular on social media.
Oh, that's what he said. That was the thing that he said, was
things
it?
that people have never said for 500, please, Alex.
That's crazy if he did meet someone who said, just because it seemed popular on TikTok.
That's like sounds like something
That sounds completely
like
made
something
up.
you would read.
But it was such a specific thing that
Oh, I was just following the impulse of the crowd, as one does.
It's like a
all my
Mormon
friends
message from the
decided,
80s.
literally. All my friends decided to jump off a bridge, and I thought, well, if all my friends are doing it, it must be safe and fun, because that would be insane if everyone was just kept jumping into it.
The only way I can imagine someone saying that is if they were kind of too scared to say to Brad Wilcox. They were too scared to bring up because of issues, actually. Like maybe he didn't want to get into it. I don't know. Maybe he did get sucked into history or something and then got pulled back because it was just too hard. And then now, I don't know.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. Though.
I could see people getting like a flash pan of like, oh shit, this is all fake.
their
Experiencing the
minds double
fallout
down.
and then being like, oh, I don't really have any community now, and I don't
And
know
just
how to
convincing
reorient to the
yourself
world,
that,
and I haven't fleshed this out thoroughly enough on my own to really make sense and grapple with the issues. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so scary that he just doubles back down. Then he's like, I just got influenced by TikTok. Because that's comforting for him to believe.
it was just so popular.
Social media. So I just kind of joined the crowd and left the church and made a big deal about it on social media. And he says, then it wasn't too long before I realized I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. And now I'm making my way back. And I said, have you posted that on social media? And he said, no. He said, I haven't. And I said, well, maybe you should.
Makes
Maybe
you
you
think. Maybe you fucking should.
I saw a TikTok from Zizek today where he's like, wisdom is absolutely preposterous. And he's like, you could say anything, and with a certain enunciation, people will say, that is wise. But you say the opposite, and it is just as wise. For instance, don't think about this life. Think about eternity. Also wise. And then don't think about eternity. Live in the now. So wise.
For the 99.9% of you that won't know what Zizek sounds like, trust me when I say that is a spot on impression. Spot on, which is no small feat. That's a tough one.
But isn't it interesting that young people don't hesitate for a minute to post about their faithlessness, but they are terrified in today's climate to post about their faith.
In today's climate, where people know about the church's long-standing history with racism and child brides, it's very, very frightening to have a conversation, an online dialogue with people.
And perhaps that's a place we can start.
Let's start there with my bullshit premise I've just come up with. That has nothing to do with the beautiful thing you, English non-Nemo man, just said.
I now want from that people watching this to know that I was feeling very vulnerable about starting this podcast, because I thought I have a lot of friends that I've sort of met during school and college and people I work with, and what would they think of me? And how would they take to me posting constantly, you know, watch my episode this week. And I want people watching to know that I've had nothing but the most incredible conversations with people since, and reactions.
Interesting. I guess he's going along with Brad's point by being like, yeah, people are scared, but don't worry. But then it's also kind of this guy seems nice.
Yeah, he was going like non-dual for a second, being like, hey, we could actually connect on Brad lots of ways. And Brad's like, actually, outsiders are kind of bad and inherently flawed, and the best conversations are with people who fit our narrative.
It's actually kind of brilliant how this guy has still brought it back to a really non-us versus them place by being like, people have been nicer than I thought.
I wonder what kinds of I know nothing about his channel.
Apparently he's a Mormon podcaster who's big enough to get Brad Wilcox on.
I think at this point they're willing to take everyone. They're like, well, our last top influencer, Ruby Frankie, didn't turn out great.
I don't think I've had a single. You get random bots on YouTube that will sometimes comment something like, "Oh, this was wrong" or something. But from people that I know and love, and most people that I haven't met, I've had some of the most incredible reactions. And you have to do it though. You have to put yourself in the vulnerable.
Brad's like, as long as you're not trying to empathize too much or humanize the other or give anyone a valid reason for leaving an affinity group, I think that would be better.
Brad's just like a born and raised Utah boy, right? As far as we know. I mean, he lives in
exactly sure
Utah.
what his background is, but has never spent a day outside of the confines of the
I was gonna say, like,
Mormon
English Mormons can't be that level of us versus them, because it's just not a country, a society where you can just be surrounded by Mormons all the time. And it's just, so it makes sense that this guy has a more, sort of like well-rounded, less us versus them mindset. Because I actually do feel like the average English person is almost like really tries, it's almost like because religion is so foreign to most English people, they really try and be respectful of it when they meet, even if they think it's weird and, I'm sure they don't like the child brides. But like the average person just doesn't really care that much. And they just like, I think it's kind of a fun challenge for them to just like see how well they can respect religious people, because it's like a novelty. We just pulled off filming a video where we didn't film for 3 hours. I'm very proud of us.
Unhinged of us. What's happening?
This has been lovely. Can't wait to read the comments section and have you guys come over to Patreon to join us there.
Brad, thanks for yet another collaboration.
Another banger, Brad. We love your art. Never stop.
Never stop, never stopping. I just watched that again the other day. It was so good. Thank you to our Patreon supporters for making
our PayPal monthly donors.
Yes, for making all of this possible. We could not do any of this without you. As always, there's still open slots on our Costa Rica trip, so check it out if you want to have a great old time.
Yes, you have until July to book your spot on the Costa Rica trip, unless we sell out before then. Right now we have 10 spots filled, plus us, so 12, and we can have 20. So we'll see whether July or selling out happens first. But we asked tonight, we have our first, everyone who's hopping on a Zoom and getting to know each other. So the sooner you get in, the more you can kind of bond with the group in advance, which is fun and nice. Bye, you guys. So glad you were here.